My name is Jason, and I found out my fiancée had a second life because she forgot to lock her glove box. It's the kind of thing you hear about in podcasts, the seemingly perfect woman with the double life, the twist that comes out of nowhere, the guy who never saw it coming. That guy was me. And this is how it all unraveled. Lena and I had been together for almost 5 years. We met in the most cliché way possible. She spilled coffee on me at a conference. We laughed, exchanged apologies and numbers, and 2 months later we were inseparable. She was smart, independent, incredibly driven, the type who always had a plan and a backup plan and still made time for date nights, Sunday hikes, and calling her mom every Tuesday. Everyone loved her, my family, my coworkers. Even my cynical little sister who trusts no one said, "Jason, don't mess this up." So I didn't. I proposed to her on a trip to Vancouver just after sunrise at the top of Grouse Mountain. She cried. I cried. She said yes. It was perfect, or at least I thought it was. Fast forward 8 months. We were knee-deep in wedding planning, down payments, and guest lists. She was more distracted than usual, but I chalked it up to stress. She was still sweet, still loving, still Lena. One Friday, she asked me to take her car in for an oil change while she was at work. No big deal. I drove it to the mechanic, dropped it off, and went to grab lunch. But when I got back, I noticed the glove box hanging open. I figured maybe the mechanic had checked the manual or insurance papers. But when I reached to close it, I saw something that didn't belong. A phone. Not her usual one. A black beat-up iPhone with a cracked screen and no case. I remember just staring at it, confused. Lena's phone was always pristine. She was the kind of person who cleaned her screen twice a day. This thing looked like it had been through a war. It was on. Not locked. My first instinct, put it back. Don't invade her privacy. Maybe it was old. Maybe it was her work phone, but something felt off. Like my gut knew something my brain wasn't ready to process. So I picked it up and opened the messages. The first one hit like a punch. Marcus, last night was insane. I can still smell you. Tell him you're working late again tomorrow. My mouth went dry. I scrolled. Dozens of messages, some flirtatious, some explicit, all recent photos, videos, a shared calendar with getaway weekend marked on a date when she told me she was visiting her cousin. I felt like I was watching someone else's life implode, not mine, not ours. Because the Lena in those messages, she wasn't the woman I knew. Or maybe she was, and I'd just never truly seen her. I didn't take the phone. I didn't even confront her that night. I put it back exactly where I found it, drove the car home, and said nothing. We had dinner. She told me about a client she hated. I nodded, smiled, pretended I wasn't bleeding. Then I went to the bathroom, locked the door, and vomited. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay next to her, staring at the ceiling, her breathing steady beside me. I wondered if she'd done the same, laid beside me after seeing him. The next morning, I told her I was going to visit my parents for the weekend. She kissed me goodbye, made a joke about bringing back pie, and waved from the porch as I drove away. I didn't go to my parents. I booked a hotel, sat alone with my thoughts, my rage, my heartbreak. And I planned, because I wasn't just going to leave quietly. I needed to know how deep the lie went, and I needed to make sure she knew exactly what she destroyed. But first, I needed that phone. The first thing I did when I got to the hotel was write down everything I saw on that second phone, not just the messages, the names, the timestamps, the photos, the tone of her replies. I needed a record, something real, because once you see something like that, your mind tries to gaslight you. It tries to protect you by pretending maybe it wasn't as bad as you remember. Maybe there's an explanation. There wasn't. I spent the entire night thinking about every moment Lena had lied to me, every time she said she was working late, every out-of-town weekend that didn't add up. The wedding planning, she said, was overwhelming. The missed calls she blamed on meetings. I opened my laptop and searched for Marcus. Her phone had his full name and a few messages, and I remembered one photo with his arm and a very identifiable sleeve tattoo, visible. It didn't take long. LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, Marcus DeLeon, works in corporate sales, lives 20 minutes away, divorced, no kids, loves motorcycles, gym selfies, and apparently my fiancée. The next day I made a decision. I wasn't confronting Lena until I had the phone in my hand. I needed proof. Hard evidence, something she couldn't spin or cry her way out of. So Sunday evening, I went back to the apartment while she was still out. She texted earlier that she was getting dinner with a coworker. I already knew that was a lie. The second phone's calendar had a dinner reservation for 2 at a trendy bistro, under the name L. L. She was using a nickname with him. I let myself in quietly. Scout, our golden retriever, wagged his tail like nothing in the world was wrong. I gave him a pat, walked to the garage, and opened her car. The glove box was empty. Gone. My stomach dropped. I checked the center console. Under the seats. Nothing. Back in the kitchen, I opened every drawer, checked her purse, coat pockets, the laundry hamper, even under the bed. It was like searching for a ghost. She must have moved it, or maybe she found out I saw it. I started questioning everything. Had she noticed something was off? Did she go looking after the oil change? Did I leave a fingerprint somewhere it didn't belong? I was spiraling. Then, out of sheer instinct, I checked the pantry. Top shelf, behind a box of cereal neither of us liked. There it was. Same cracked screen, same battered phone. I powered it on. Still no lock screen. That alone felt like a slap. She wasn't hiding it behind passwords, just geography. Like that made it safer. I took it back to the hotel. This time I copied everything. Photos, videos, messages, screenshots of dates. I uploaded it all to a hidden folder in the cloud. She'd never see it coming, but that wasn't enough. I needed to know more. How long it had been going on, how deep it ran, if Marcus was the only one. So I went back further, scrolling through the phone's photo roll, old messages. Turns out Marcus wasn't the first, not by a long shot. There was Paul, from a business conference in Miami. Tanner, some guy she met at a gallery. Eli, short-lived but graphic, each with their own thread, their own slice of her life. Some overlapped. One text even mentioned me. Jason's at a work retreat. I'm free tonight. Don't worry, he never checks my travel calendar. My chest felt like it was caving in. The woman I'd loved for 5 years and the one I was building a future with had been living a double life more complex than I ever imagined. And I had no idea who she really was. But I was going to find out, every single piece. Because I wasn't walking away broken. Not yet. I spent the next week playing a role. Loving fiancé. Calm. Normal. I kissed her goodbye in the morning, sent her memes at lunch, listened to her vent about the caterer who messed up the flower arrangements. Meanwhile, I was carrying a digital dossier of her betrayals in my pocket. It felt unreal, like I was stuck in some psychological thriller, waiting for the third act twist. Only I already knew the twist, I just hadn't revealed it yet. I thought I'd feel powerful having all this information. I didn't. I felt poisoned by it, like every "I love you" that left her lips was laced with arsenic, and I had to keep swallowing it to keep the act going. There were moments, brief flashes, when I thought about confronting her, screaming, throwing the phone on the table and watching her face contort under the weight of truth. But then what? What would I gain? A dramatic scene, a few tears, some hollow apology? I didn't want that. I wanted her to feel it, not just be exposed, but undone. I wanted the weight of what she did to hit her in waves, the way it hit me. So I started building the moment. I gathered everything. A clean timeline, messages printed out in chronological order, photos, screenshots, cross-referenced calendar entries. I created a folder labeled Truth and backed it up 3 times. Then I waited for the perfect setting. It came sooner than I expected. We were having an engagement dinner at her parents' house. A small thing, just immediate family. Her mom loved hosting. Her dad was a soft-spoken man with kind eyes and a weakness for wine. They adored me. Always said I brought out the best in Lena. Funny, right? I arrived early to help set up. Lena was getting ready upstairs. Her mom was setting the table. Her dad poured me a drink. And suddenly I had the opportunity. I pulled her dad aside, said I needed to talk, just the 2 of us. I told him, not everything, but enough, that I found proof Lena was cheating, repeatedly, that I had it all, that I wasn't just walking away, I was protecting myself. His face went pale, but he didn't argue. He just said, "Do what you need to do." That night, as dinner was being served, I made a toast. I stood up, smiled, and raised my glass. To family, to love, and to knowing the whole truth before you spend the rest of your life with someone. Lena looked confused, so I pulled the phone out of my pocket, the second phone, and placed it on the table. The room went still. "I found this in Lena's car," I said. "It's unlocked. You're all welcome to take a look." Gasps, forks hitting plates. Her mom whispering her name. Lena's face froze. She didn't even reach for it. I continued, "I won't make a scene. I won't shout. But I won't marry someone who's been cheating for years, with multiple men, and lying to everyone in this room." Then I looked at her father. "Thank you for your kindness. I'm sorry you had to find out this way." And with that, I turned, walked out the door, and didn't look back. She didn't chase me, but her messages started the next day. The first message came at 6:13 a.m. the next morning. "Lena, please, can we talk? I don't know what you think you saw." I didn't reply. At 7:22 a.m., "Jason, please, let me explain. It's not what it looks like." By 9 a.m., she called. I let it go to voicemail. Then came the longer texts, emotional ones, defensive ones, angry ones, begging ones, the whole cycle, like a drowning person trying every stroke to stay afloat. "I never meant to hurt you. It didn't mean anything. I was scared. It was a mistake. You weren't always present either." That last one almost made me laugh, not because it was true, but because it was the clearest sign she wasn't sorry. She was caught. It wasn't regret, it was damage control. I blocked her number, then I blocked her on social media, took down our photos, let mutual friends know the wedding was off. A few tried to ask questions. I said only, "Ask her." Word spread fast. Her cousin texted me apologizing. Her maid of honor sent a single stunned emoji. And me? I slept. For the first time in weeks, I actually slept. But peace doesn't last long when you've scorched the ground. A few days later, a message came through from a new number. It was her again. "Lena, I know I don't deserve anything from you, but I need you to know this wasn't about love. It was about control. About me not feeling good enough, and that's not your fault." I didn't know what to make of that. It sounded like a confession, but it also felt like a script. As if she'd read that in some recovery book. As if now she wanted grace. I wasn't ready to give it. Instead, I started going back over my own memories. What had I missed? Was there a moment, a hint, a sign? I remembered the trip to her cousin's lake house, where her phone never left her hand. I remembered the time I surprised her at work and she looked like she'd seen a ghost. The random spa weekends. The changes in perfume, how she stopped wanting me to walk her to the door. I remembered all of it. Differently now. Grief isn't linear, it loops back, shows you reruns with director's commentary. You see it again and again until it finally sinks in. None of it was yours to carry. Still, I wondered, what would she have done if I hadn't found that phone? Would she have married me? Would she have kept cheating? Would I have found out 5 years later with kids and a mortgage? That thought terrified me. The only thing scarier than heartbreak is living a lie for decades. I took a week off work, deleted all our shared documents, canceled every vendor, returned the ring, sent out an email to our guests saying the wedding was no longer happening. No explanation, just plans have changed. Thank you for your understanding. Her mother called me sobbing. I told her kindly that I wouldn't be speaking to Lena again, and I meant it. But healing is a strange thing. You don't just wake up one day fine. You just stop checking the door every time you hear footsteps. You stop rehearsing what you'd say if they called. You stop missing the version of them that never existed. And eventually, you breathe again. That's where I was now. Not healed, but breathing. And that was enough. 2 weeks passed before I saw her again. Not by choice, not because I wanted closure or needed one last conversation. It was logistical. We still had a lease. She asked if we could meet to divide things. Furniture, kitchen stuff, books. The kind of dull details that follow emotional wreckage like aftershocks. I agreed. We chose a neutral space, a cafe near the apartment, public enough that it wouldn't spiral into drama. She arrived early. She always did. And when I walked in, she looked exactly the same, but smaller, like someone had taken all her confidence and pressed it down. "Hey," she said quietly. "Hey." We sat. There was no hug, no eye contact at first, just silence as we both fumbled for composure. She was the one to speak first. "I want to say I'm sorry, again, not because I think it fixes anything, but because it's true." I nodded. She went on. "I was stupid, selfish. I thought I could control it, compartmentalize it. I told myself I loved you, and that made it okay, that everything else was just noise." I let her talk. "I kept waiting for you to slip up, to disappoint me, because then I could justify what I was doing, but you never did. You just kept loving me." My throat tightened. "You didn't deserve any of it." I looked up. "You're right, I didn't." We talked logistics, who got the couch, the dishes, the blender we bought together. We agreed on everything easily. She even offered to pay the remaining lease penalty. Before we left, she said, "I hope one day you find someone who gives you the kind of love I couldn't." I didn't answer. I just walked away. And it should have ended there. But a week later, I got an email. From Marcus. Subject line: "I'm sorry, man." I stared at it for a long time. Didn't even want to open it. But I did. He wrote 3 paragraphs, apologizing, admitting everything, saying he didn't know she was engaged at first, but kept going even after he found out. That he was ashamed. That he ended it before I found the phone. Said he thought I should know the truth. But by then, truth had become a dull blade. I didn't reply. Instead, I forwarded the email to Lena with no comment. Her response came 3 minutes later. I didn't ask him to do that. I didn't know. "I'm sorry, again." I didn't respond to her either because this wasn't about them anymore. It was about me, reclaiming my time, my peace, my identity. I moved into a new place, bought a desk I'd always wanted, hung photos of places I wanted to visit, started running again, started sleeping without dreams. People say heartbreak changes you. That's true, but what they don't say is that it clarifies you too. You see who you are, what you value, what you'll never tolerate again. And for the first time in years, I wasn't planning a wedding or a future for 2. I was just living. For me, that was the real beginning. The 6th month after everything fell apart, I went on a solo trip. I didn't tell anyone except my boss and my sister. I just packed a bag, booked a cabin in the mountains, and left my phone on silent for the first time in years. There were no distractions, just trees, air, silence, and me. I brought books I hadn't touched in ages, journals I used to write in before life got too loud. I hiked during the day and made fires at night. The quiet felt awkward at first, like I was sharing space with someone I no longer trusted, myself. But slowly something softened. I wasn't thinking about Lena anymore. Not constantly, anyway. The loop of betrayal, confrontation, and grief wasn't replaying every night like a broken movie. It was quiet, faint, like a memory from another life. One morning, I opened an old notebook and found a list I'd written years ago. A silly list of things I wanted to do before I turned 35. I'd forgotten most of them. One stood out. Take a train across the country with someone I love. I crossed it out. Then underneath it I wrote, take a train across the country alone, and love that too. Because I wasn't the same man who wrote the first version of that dream. And that was okay. On the final day of the trip, I sat on the porch of the cabin with coffee in hand and watched the sun rise over the ridge. It was the kind of moment I used to imagine sharing with someone. But that morning, I didn't feel alone. I felt whole. The silence didn't feel empty anymore. It felt earned. When I returned to the city, things felt different. My apartment was still quiet, but it didn't echo. My routines felt grounded, not mechanical. I met new people, slowly. I wasn't in a rush to fill the space Lena left behind because I finally understood it wasn't a void. It was a clearing. And in that clearing, something new could grow. One evening, at a bookstore, I ran into a woman named Claire. She asked for a recommendation. We joked about how hard it is to find endings that feel honest. We talked for over an hour, and standing between two shelves, both holding books we didn't end up buying. I didn't tell her anything about Lena, about the phone, the fallout, the pain. I didn't need to, because the story I was living now, it didn't start with betrayal. It started with me. Claire and I exchanged numbers. No expectations, just curiosity. We met again. And again. Not a rebound, not a replacement, something quieter, gentler. One night, I told her everything, not because I needed to confess, but because I wanted her to know who I was and what I'd survived. She didn't pity me, she didn't flinch, she just listened, and when I finished, she said, "I'm glad you didn't let it make you bitter." And I realized I hadn't. I had every reason to be, but instead I chose to rebuild not just my life, but my trust, my joy, my capacity to love without fear. That's the story now, not the one about the phone, the one that came after.